I don't script the creation or deletion of accounts simply because it ends up being a headache of issues. So the main idea I think that people think when you see these script steps, and let's go in and take a look at them. And we'll come in here and open up this area. And here is the account section. Where is it? There we go. These all have to do with accounts, not privilege sets. So the idea behind this, I think most developers think, or amateur developers think, is that this allows you to enable people to create and delete accounts. And yes, it would. But the problem occurs is that what do? Do you store the accounts in another table? Certainly not the passwords, but even the accounts are a big security hole. If somebody can see what the account names are, they can do a lot to figure out what's going on. So it's really not a good idea to do that. I don't recommend making a table of all your accounts and putting an interface on and say, okay, we want to create this one, delete this one, disable this one. We don't want to do all that stuff. And let me make it clear, this has to do with accounts. They don't let you modify privilege sets. The only one I really use here is this one right here, relogin. And we covered that before. But these other ones, I'm recommending you really think twice about using them. And here's why. Because again, it's a big security hole to make a table. If you give people that ability, and let's say it works well, users may add someone to the wrong privilege set, give them the wrong privileges, they may do something wrong. Users could inadvertently remove access for a user. I mean, all kinds of things could happen because you give the power to the users. And they have this term called idiot proofing. And it sounds kind of mean, but it's accurate because people sometimes don't know enough. They should really call it ignorance proofing, right? They sometimes don't have enough knowledge to know that they're doing something wrong. It's why you don't put delete all records and leave it under the menus when you make a professional solution, because it's too easy for them to make a mistake. So I don't recommend that. In fact, I don't usually even recommend that you allow people with the new FileMaker 18 feature in security. If we go into advanced settings, you can see that on any kind of privilege set you create yourself, you can allow the user to manage accounts, this check mark right here, that don't have full access. That means they can get into this section right here, but not this section, the advanced settings. They don't get to work with, and that's great because you don't have to script anything. But again, it's still, you're trusting these users. And if somebody really wants to do it a client, I'll let them have that ability and make sure I train them well, because they don't want to, mess up these. And they don't understand the order in which these things appear, and there's all kinds of things you don't understand. And I think this is, a lot of developers said, hey, we're tired of scripting this. We want to have some way for them to access it. I get it. Some developers, they want to do that. I'm telling you, I wouldn't recommend doing it. But if somebody really insists, okay, let them have access through that option that I just showed you. The only time I really see security scripts, adding and deleting accounts, is if you have multiple files in your solution. Now, I've told you already in this video series that that's very uncommon. You really typically design, if I haven't told you already, I'm telling you now, typically in, let's say, 99% of the scenarios, you want to program your solution in one file, multiple tables. Now, if you have a big organization, you have the sales team and the marketing team and the accounting team, and you want to make a solution for each one and have them connect a little bit and talk a little bit. Okay, I get that. You don't want to make one giant solution. You can make a bunch of little solutions for each section, each department in there. So that's fine. If you do end up in that situation, then these account script steps can be very handy, but not in the hands of the users, in the hands of the developer, because he doesn't want to go to each one of those files and put the same passwords. Because guess what? If you're in accounting and you need a little bit of information from the sales table, that has to get opened, and you have to have the same credentials in there. So a developer doesn't want to go to each one of the files and put the same credentials in. You just have a script that's available to you that allows you to do this. And so if you're a developer and you want to do this, you need to know about the errors that could occur. So that's a long explanation of, before we get into the script. There's two scripts in here, add and delete account, and they simply show you what the errors are. It's not a very complicated solution. I mostly wanted to cover this to have a soapbox discussion. For me to get up on my soapbox and make tell you all about how I think about the security script steps. I just don't use them. I would avoid them if all possible. So here's account add. You can see here we have a simple thing that says take the account name and the password from global fields. Again, these would be not accessible to anybody but the developer, and assign them to a privilege set. Now, I've made it very simple where it's just simply data entry that you can add them to. But if you had multiple privilege sets, then you would have an if statement here that says if I click this button, or if the script parameters this, use this. Because there's no way to make, you can make this dynamic, you can make this dynamic or adaptive. You have to pop this up. So you'd have to have, if you had 3 privilege sets you wanted to add people to, you'd have to have 3 add accounts and some type of if structure around it and some decision making, decide which one we want to actually use. And then here's the errors. If it's 12, this account name already exists. If it's 9, you don't have privileges to create accounts. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about this one. This one's important, but this one, only if you're designing it for users. If it's 5, an account must be specified, meaning you made a mistake and forgot to enter it. So you need to know that's what you did. Here's one that doesn't actually have an error code. You just check to see if the password's empty to make sure it's there. There's no error code for that. And then otherwise, the count has been added. And then you go to your delete. Got the same types of errors here. This count name already exists for 12. 217, you don't have the privilege to create accounts. Account must be specified. Account with this name already exists. And the count has been deleted. That's just if everything goes right. Very simple. These work really well. If I hit add account, I've got test in 1, 2, 3, 4 in the global fields. The count has been added. Go to manage security. You'll see that test is in there with the data entry. Very easy to do. If I try to add it again, the account name already exists because it trapped for that error. Delete the account. Try to delete it again. No account exists. That's because we already deleted it the first time. And if we look at it, it's gone. So it works really great. And again, what you do is you'd have it go from file to file and transfer that global value to each file through a script parameter, because you do it from one main file, the starting file, and then have it go to each file and create it. And you can pass those values along with the script parameter from script to script to script so that you can grab these values over there. And if you're wondering how to move those values, the very simplest way, since we have 2 values, is to separate them by return. So concatenate the account name and the password with the return between them, and then use get value to get the values out of that return separate list. Get value 1 for the count name and get value 2 for the password. Simple stuff. It can make a developer's life really easy. You just need to know, and because developers make mistakes too, you need to know what those errors are in case they occur.